Hey everyone, this is just my second video now in a series of videos that I'll be making in regards to a real pay gap. Fuck this gender pay gap bullshit, but a real pay gap that matters tremendously. And that's in reference in regard to the public sector versus the private sector. I've already uploaded a video to my YouTube channel. Look at that. And I'll post a link to that in the description of this video below. And this is just the next video in that series that's pointing out a glaring divide that those in the established media don't even want to touch. They consider it the third rail, but if you think about it, especially the CBC or those who are looking for government handouts nowadays, because they've lied to the public so much that nobody wants to support them financially or economically. But they're desperate, folks. These people, like I say, they don't have your best interest in mind. They're all about sustaining their own propagandist outlets that helps keep them in their pretense positions of authority and enriching themselves at your expense. This is from the Canadian Federation of Independent Businesses. Heading, Wage Watch, a comparison of public sector and private sector wages. Now, I will point out that this is from 2015. It's an article from 2015. So, it's 2018, and you know damn well things have got a whole lot worse, progressively worse, since then. March 2015, Ted Millett, VP and Chief Economist. The broad public sector is a major employer in Canada. As a group, it employs 3.6 million Canadians. Think about it. We already know, because there was a study that came out in 2017 that I've already shared in a couple videos in the past, and it's up to 4.1 and creeping up to 4.2 million. So obviously a lot higher than even this 3.6 million in 2015. So like I said, way worse now than it was even then. But listen up. More than one job in five. So 1 in 5 people in Canada work for the government in some capacity. Are we getting close enough yet to socialism, full-on communism? It sure as shit sounds like it, doesn't it? I mean, think about 1 in 5. That's 20%, folks. And if you have a spouse that you live with, I mean, most of these people aren't living by themselves, so there's chance that maybe 2, 3 in 5 Canadians, or if you have a family, depending on how big it is, but think about how many people that could truly represent that are living off it. Because even if you're the one that's working for government, your family might be living off of that paycheck, that direct consequence, that direct result of that forced wealth or income redistribution that you as the public sector employee have now gained as a result of being a loyal subject to the ruling class. Because the large share of these jobs are supported in whole or in part by tax revenues, theft. Yes, taxation is theft. Have you ever agreed to pay these 3.6 or now 4.1, 4.2 million people in excess of what you could ever hope for? Have you ever agreed to that? Have you truly? Have you signed up for that? You know you haven't, and neither have I. It is certainly appropriate to question how representative and appropriate public sector salaries are in relation to private sector norms. Latest findings based on the 2011 National Household Survey 2011, think about it, folks. Like I say, it's 2018. Damn. Which represents earnings from 2010 show a continued and substantial gap in salary compensation in favor of government or public sector employees, even after adjustments for differences in occupation mix, age, and education. The gaps grow even wider once employment benefits such as working hours and pensions are taken into account. The impacts on the public purse are significant, adding almost $20 billion to the hard costs of compensating the public sector in 2010. 8 years ago, folks. Can you imagine how bad it is now? You've seen the growth scale, right? The charts. You've seen the growth charts at least, right? And how much fucking growth the public sector has had and since 2010, since the Trudeau Liberals come to power, substantial. You see that number? It's like, it looks like a rocket getting ready to take off. So think about that. These numbers, you got to take into a grain of salt compared to what the reality is out there today. And these are already disturbing enough. Among the big public sector employers, the federal government has the largest gaps. Think about Trudeau, they're talking his smack and his bullshit, right? Like I said, he's just fucking making that gap even wider. So Does he really care about you? No, it's only about the connected class. Like I say, these are fucking fascists. These are collectivists, socialists, whatever you want to call them, communists. They're all collectivist parasites, authoritarians, and petty tyrants, and thieves, ultimately. With a salary premium of 13%, which grows to 33.2% once benefits are taken into account. Premiums paid to municipal employees are almost as severe, 8.9%, 22.3% with benefits. Provincial governments as a group appear to have a little more control over salary premiums at 5.5%, but benefits bring the gap rise to 21.2% with benefits factored in. Holy shit. Like I say, this is the real pay gap that people need to concern themselves with, but you're not going to hear this propagated by those in the establishment media or the political or pundit class, right? Because those are the people that are benefiting from this shit. The reason why this is being espoused is because it's you know, businesses, right, that are on the hook to pay all this shit, although even they don't have to suffer nearly as bad as those of us that aren't part of the corporate class. You know, those in the private sector that, you know, don't have offshore accounts, you're the one that's getting screwed the worst. So you're the one that need to concern yourself even more than the CFIB does. You know, which is why I'm trying to which is why I'm doing this, which is why I'm reporting this for you, so that you're informed as much as they are, and you at least understand where you are, where your place is in Canadian society. If you're a private sector, whether you're blue collar or white collar, if you're in the private sector, yeah, you are now just pure subject, serfs, and slaves to the ruling class that is basically perpetuating, not by your own fruition, not by you choosing to do it just because that was your preference, but because you seemingly are willing to go along and allow these fuckers to steal more and more of your productive wealth and income to enrich them further. CFIB's analysis also covers public sector groups such as education, healthcare institutions, urban transit agencies, and Canada Post, with findings along similar lines. They show a chart here, as you can see, like, look at this stuff, folks. Like I say, come on. Look at who the people that are truly benefiting from a wage gap. It's those in the public sector, and like I said, 71% of them are women. So, really, think about the bullshit they espouse when it comes to, oh, women are somehow oppressed, right? Because they're not making as much as what? Their male authoritarian counterparts in government? What? Because you're not at the very top echelon of that hierarchy? Is that what you're really bitching about? Because in reality, you're doing a whole lot better than the rest of the Canadians in the private sector. They're going to pay for all you dumbasses. For all you parasites. Anyways, I'll post a link to this article in the description of the video below. But like I say, I'm going to keep on hammering about this because this is the real pay gap that Canadians really need to concern themselves. Not this bullshit thing where it's all try to divide men or women or black and white or aboriginals and white people or whatever the fuck, you know, that political division, that identity politics that the ruling class tries to espouse to keep you confused and confounded. This is the pay gap that you really need to concern yourself with. It's Canadian Libertarian, and I love liberty.